This is our live weekly super investors community mastermind call. And I decided to open the doors for everyone because I wanted every single person out there to hear this man speak. I've heard of Patrick's name the last several years. I've heard other people talk about him and all that, but I've never actually heard Patrick speak or learned from him. Like I just never directly had an exchange with him until just a few weeks ago. And with all that being said, Patrick is going to help you guys have a super investor mindset. So, how you can be resilient and just really accomplish a lot of things that are holding you back. You'll realize most of it is just you. And I'm not saying this as someone who's overcome this person. I literally just had an hour-long call with someone today about I'm dealing with my own versions of that at my own levels right now, right? We all are dealing with this, different levels, different versions, but Patrick has a very tactical way of handling this. So, that being said, Patrick is a 30-year entrepreneur and expert in evidence-based personal development and the neuroscience of human behavior. He's the founder of Elite Edge Experience, where he primarily helps men dominate in family, finance, fitness, and leadership. You've done a lot to help all genders, regardless. So the reason why this is so great is not just the mindset stuff, right? You're also a 25-year real estate investor and educator, and you have an upcoming book coming out built for this, where you really expose the 5 inner battles that tend to break entrepreneurs. Married for 33 years, incredible. That's the real goal for me, right? None of it matters without family first, then health, then relationships, and then finances. Easier to say when you're already financially free, but it's so important. I really truly rank it in those priorities. Father of 3, former rugby player, and you actually entered MMA at 42 years old. So you quite literally live what you teach. So with that being said, I'm really looking forward to you helping other people really develop this super investor mindset. So with that, I will give you the show. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate that. And thank you for that introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. And I'm honored to be here with you and truly blessed and grateful that that you'd even show up for this. And I mean that sincerely. Love the opportunity to share. And as we go through this, don't even for a second ever think that preaching to you. I'm side by side with you in this whole journey. I just chose to focus in this one little niche on understanding what's going on between our ears so that everything else we do better in life and find a way to enjoy it along the way. And, we all know that not everything along the journey of life is necessarily fun or enjoyable or we'd sign up for, but that's not to say that we can't enjoy the journey while we're getting to wherever it is we feel that we're going. So I'm going to open up with just a quick little story because I was on an interview earlier today. And at the end of the interview, somebody in the audience asked me a question. They said, "Hey, Pat, is there anything in your life, like any one moment, any one thing that like got you into this space that you're in right now? Because you've done a whole bunch of different things and now you're so focused here. What was that one thing?" Nobody's ever asked me that before. I thought that was worth answering. And I thought about it for a second. And like all of us, there's no one thing that shapes who we are, right? Well, we can all point to some moments in time that change, that alter the trajectory that we're on, right? And this goes back to that night you just spoke of, Mike. I was 42 years old and I was about to step in the MMA cage for the very first time. And there's a whole story behind it that's not really that relevant. I'm sitting in the locker room. The guys on my team, we had 6 or 8 guys fighting that night. I was fighting for a gym called the Lion's Den, which is an old guy, a former UFC guy, Ken Shamrock ran these gyms. This was like a big promotional night. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Not the best night for your first fight, And sitting in the locker room and it's completely empty because my teammates are out fighting. So our whole team is out there watching them, not in a good mental state. In walks this dude, and I didn't know him from Adam, never met him, never talked to him. I had no idea how he knew my name. And he walks up to me and he looks me square in the eye. And he goes, "You're Pat, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Now, internally, I want to punch this guy right now because I don't want to talk to anybody, right? I'm so deep in these negative thoughts that I don't want to be seen, heard. I want to disappear. But here he is. He's in my face. He goes, "Can I tell you something right now?" And I don't even know what to say. I'm like, "Sure." So he puts his hands on my thighs. He leans into me. He goes, "I can see it in your eyes." He goes, "You're fighting the wrong fight. You think the fight's out there in the cage. You think it's about your competitor. You think it's about the audience. You're worrying about all your friends and fans that flew in to watch you fight. You're worried about your preparation, your training. You're worried about your injuries you got coming in. That has nothing to do with this fight. The fight you got to be fighting is right here, right now, between your ears in this locker room. And here's how this is going to go. You win this fight, you get a chance in the cage. You lose this fight, you're done. but you got to make a decision before you walk through those doors. That didn't do me any good that night. Okay. I was not in a space to receive it, but I look back on that moment, Mike, 1,000 times, and it changed the way I viewed this world. I started to see that, you know what he just told me, whether he realized it or not, that's life. We get to decide how life happens upon us long before it happens. And if we don't win that here, we've got no chance out there. Doesn't guarantee we're going to win out there. But if we can't win it here, we're done. Doesn't matter what resources or resourcefulness is poured into us, what studying we do, how many more podcasts we listen to, what gurus that pour in. None of that matters. We've got to win the game here. And that's what I focused the better part of the past, say, 12 years of my life on. Right in that space, closing the gap between where we are and where we want to go. And it's not a lack of, this gap is not filled with not knowing or lack of resources. Every single one of us knows what we got to do. We really do. We know how to do it, or we have access to that information. We deeply desire the results, the outcome of what we say we want. Yet here we are, incapable of getting ourselves to produce the consistent behavior necessary to produce the results we desire. Anybody know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
that's our story. You know, if you're raising your hand and saying, yeah, that's me, don't judge yourself for it. Doesn't mean you're bad or broken or anything wrong with you. You're just freaking human, okay? And all we're going to do tonight is share some tools, some tips, some trade tools, how to be a better human. I mean, is that cool? Right? That's it. And ultimately close the gap between this part over here, where we're at with all this knowledge and expertise and desire and want, and getting to where we want to go. There's a lot along that journey. And what I'm going to share with you today is a breakdown of this book where it's in publishing right now. And it's the 5 mental traps, hurdles, challenges that break entrepreneurs. Every single one of these at some point in our career, or often, or even repeatably. Okay. It's being human. Let's start off with number 1, fear of failure, fear of rejection. We have a bad relationship with the word failure. And where'd that come from? It came from our upbringing. Started with our parents. Then it got picked up at school with teachers. And if you're anything like me, it was that occasion when things didn't go well, you get a piece of paper, your homework, with a big red F circled on the top of it, just to drill home how bad you failed. And we created an association with failure, that failure is bad. Failure is not acceptable. So we avoid failure. You want to know the number 1 way to avoid failure, guarantee you'll never fail? Don't do shit. Just sit there and do nothing, and you won't fail. Outside of that, you're subject to failing.
Can I hit another one that I'm stuck with right now? Like, this is one where, like, there's the spectrums, right? You fear failure so much you do nothing. Or sometimes you fear failure so much, but you're still a mover, a shaker, you still do stuff, but you're tinkering on the edges. You're failing to do the important things that you actually need to do. You're just doing all the easy things that you're used to doing, right? That's also leading to some levels of failure. It's not as bad as doing nothing, but that's where I get stuck sometimes. We're busy working, but not actually doing the things that we know we should be doing.
There's a little book called Amateur versus Pro or something like that. No, Turning Pro. Same guy who wrote the book War of Art. And in that, it says exactly what you're talking about, Mike. On the outside, it looks like you're a pro, but you're playing like an amateur. You're not exposing yourself. You're not taking the risk. You're not going big. Nothing to lose, but you ain't going to gain anything. But from the outside casual observer, you're wearing the facade. You're pretending to be the pro, the person that does that thing. Very, very good read. But that's
exactly. Can I highlight, guys? I'm talking about my biggest thing right now is social media, content, brand. Like, I'm so freaking scared. I don't know what the hell it is. This stuff I can do live all day, but creating content, thinking through it, posting it, I don't know what the hell is. I don't know what I'm so scared of, but let's get through it, right? Let's get through the mental trap. So thank you.
You know, I use this other paradigm all the time in my own life, and it's fair for all of us, right? To always look and see which seat you're sitting in. And there's 3 general seats we can play at any given time. We're the creator of the game, we're the players in the game, or we're the spectators watching the players in the game. The creator makes all the rules, has the highest level of risk, highest level of reward. Players have to play within a construct of the rules, but they still get to make decisions. They still have risk and reward, just not quite as much as the creator. Spectators, no risk, no reward, no skin in the game, but they have a good time, okay? They can't change the outcome of the game, but they don't bear the burden of losing the game. And it's a good way to look at how we're playing, what role we're playing in different areas that we play in life. And when you, Mike, step back and do busy work, you're almost back into a spectator role. You can't affect anything. You can get some little shit done, but you're not making any big moves, and there's no big rewards at the end of it. And there's no risk of any real loss. It's a safe play.
It's
Right?
literally, actually, I can see the visual in my head. I'm a player in my real estate game. I know my rules. I know how to succeed. I know how to underwrite deals, raise money, buy and hold properties. I got that. I'm a good player in that game. Now that I'm trying to be a creator of creating massive social, creating massive change ripple effects, helping other people on their journeys. Yes, I have an awesome super investor community. Yes, we have the awesome free wealth, the real estate community, social media, all that good stuff. But I know I am just scratching the surface of my potential. I want to help so many freaking people, but my actions currently are not in alignment with that because I'm not creating in that way that I should. I'm playing within the boundaries of my existing game where I need to literally be that creator, take those higher levels of risk to get those higher level reward, which is helping so many of you guys freaking achieve financial freedom through real estate. That would be me really at my creator space. So this is so good. Thank you.
And look at part two in this one, fear of failure and fear of rejection. One of the things that holds us back from becoming the man or woman that we're capable of becoming is our endless inner concern of what we think others think of us. And until we're able to overcome and break the bond and relationship we have with that innate fear, we will never become who we're capable of becoming. It'll always throttle our highest level of performance. And that's not an easy one for us to deal with. And I understand different contexts and relationships. But until we are able to say, you know what, I'm in a space where I got to do this for me. And if that doesn't land okay with you, I'm okay with that. And stop worrying about what we think they think about us because it's none of our business. So let's go back to the fear for a second. Let's put a little definition around fear. It gets a little confusing at times because on one hand, you hear gurus out there saying failure is not an option, right? Okay, good, exciting, whatever. And others will tell you that failure is a required part of growth. So which is it? Which is true. And whenever you hear a cliche, they're always lacking context because there's no other room on a little meme for words to explain what it really means. So let's put two-part definition around the word failure. There's failure by choice and there's failure by default. One is acceptable and one is deplorable. Okay. Failure by choice is when you went all in, you committed, gave it everything you got, and you still missed your mark. Awesome. Fantastic. You're trying to play above your game. You'll learn, you'll grow, you'll expand, you'll get great feedback and insight. You will fail forward in that case every single time. Get back up, brush yourself off, repeat, 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 and don't give a shit about what other people are saying while you're failing forward. You're in a good place. Failure by default is you didn't put in the effort, you didn't go for it, you did the little things, but you didn't do the big thing, right? And you failed, you missed your mark. That's not acceptable. That's you making a promise to yourself, a commitment to yourself, and defying your own word. And in time, you will lose faith in your own commitments to yourself. Go all the way back to New Year's, which is not that long ago. But how many of you made New Year's resolutions that did not come to fruition? How many of you made a New Year's resolution that felt good in the moment, which is oftentimes why we make those New Year's resolutions, but we never even began? We never really kicked in and gave the effort. That's a failure by default, not acceptable. This is how we start to improve that. Don't commit to something. Don't say you're going to do something. Don't set a goal. Don't set a resolution. Don't create a new milestone unless you're absolutely 100% committed to it. And commitment is whatever it takes, no matter what, period. No more bullshit, no more lies, no more excuses. Whatever it takes, period. Start expecting more of yourself, raising your standard. Don't accept less than a higher standard. When we look in the mirror every single morning, Mike, that person that's looking back at us sets our ceiling. That person we can't lie to. That person sees right through us. They know exactly who we are. They don't fall for the facade that we put on and show up to the world as, right? They know exactly what's going on. We can't outperform that person until we start raising our standards, expecting more of ourselves. Don't set a goal that you're not 100% committed to. What does that mean? You're going to go for it 100% no matter what. And you know what you're going to find? This is the beauty of it. We'll say yes to fewer things, but we'll start to realize what's important to us. And this is where life starts to get a little more interesting, gets a little more exciting. when we say yes to something that doesn't mean enough to us, the likeliness of us fulfilling that commitment goes down in the gutter. Meaning, emotion, that's where that fight, that passion comes from. That's where that fire inside comes from. That's where you get that extra guts you need when something gets in your way. And if that's not there, we're likely going to quit. So fear of failure and rejection. The fear of failure isn't the problem. It's the belief that failing defines us. That label we put on ourselves. Let's change the meaning of failure, right? That failing forward is the fastest process forward. It represents your courage. It represents your willingness to do the hard things. You can't find one person that's ever walked the face of this earth that's done anything that's mattered, that's made an impact, that doesn't have a stack of failures underneath them that they built themselves on. That's how we move forward on this. Fear of failure and rejection, number one. Number two, you guys are gonna like this one. Imposter syndrome and self-doubt. Anybody ever experienced self-doubt or imposter syndrome or the overlap of the two? So again, imposter syndrome is a little complicated, and I'll share it in a very simple format. There's two sides to it. One is good, one not so much, okay? The good one, imposter syndrome. When something really means a lot to you, the clients you take care of, the clients you work with, the people you serve, right? When something means enough to you, there will always be a part of you that is questioning whether or not you're good enough, not because you're doubting your skills, but because you want the best for the people you serve. That will be the root cause of imposter syndrome when it matters enough to you. Now, what concurrently happens often in the same breath, one hand, am I good enough? Am I going to waste their time? Can I help them as much as anybody can help them? We're contemplating that. And then the other hand is somebody asks you, hey, you got this? You're like, I've got this. I know what I'm doing. Probably no one better than I am. And you will hold these two thoughts simultaneously. And that's healthy. And it's driven simply because you care about the outcome of what it is you do.
You hit me in the soul with that, because this is literally me as now an educator, mentor. I learn, I help others because I think a little bit differently, engineer minded, whatever. But this is so true where I am constantly feeling this. This is a little bit away from real estate, but everyone for real estate investing, this is why you feel that way as well. Because there's sellers involved, there's buyers involved, there's TCs involved, there's all these people involved, there's money. You're always so concerned because a lot of you care. You see a lot of people fizzle out because they don't care and they just fail. But you that does care, that's why you have this level of imposter syndrome, because you care so much. You don't want to set anyone else up. You want to serve them the best that you can. This is so good because this is something I literally deal with all the time. I know I've raised $5+ million. I know I've bought over $20 million of real estate. I know I'm really knowledgeable about a lot of these things, but I'm always also concerned, can I do more? And this is such a great way to kind of understand how normal this is. Because I don't know what the law is, but your problems are best solved once they're written down. Or like things are not as scary once you kind of understand them or expose them to light. And that's a big part of this right now. So this is so good for me.
Even though we're following the same script, I never do the same presentation twice, ever. So this will seem totally new and different to you, okay?
Hey, you're a live guy like me, so I like it. Like script, template, whatever, let's do it.
So I'll share this with you all who can relate to what Mike's saying there, right? When you know you can serve people, help people, provide value to people, and yet you're being kind of tugged back a little by, am I good enough? We got to switch it a little and appreciate that there are people that need you, deeply need you. And if you don't step up and fill that space, likely somebody not as qualified as you is going to, which means you're doing them an injustice out of your own selfish little fears. So I'd say you have an ethical and moral obligation to push through your own self-doubt when you have facts to support that, yeah, I got this. Lean into your victories. So, I often refer to having a treasure chest that I tow around. And that treasure chest has got facts for me to reach back into and grab when I'm in doubt, when I'm feeling a little weak, when my confidence has been compromised. So I can go back and grab some facts out here that says, no, Pat, you've done this. You've been here. You've done this. You've succeeded here. Lean into what you know and just keep going forward. So don't think for a second that self-doubt, imposter syndrome is a weakness. It's not. It's a high-level mental conundrum that we put ourselves in for the betterment of those people that we serve. Now that's one side of imposter syndrome.
Can I just really tie that real quickly back into some super investing, real estate investing stuff right there? Like that's so good because a lot of us entrepreneurs, investors, whatever, we are the gap in the gain, right? We're so focused on the gap. I wanted to buy 10 properties by the end of the year or whatever it is. But in reality, this treasure chest is I've analyzed these deals. I've gotten very competent analyzing deals. I've connected with capital partners. I've got some soft commitments. I have some consistent deal flow coming in. I have a very clear buy box. I have all these things. If instead of being concerned with am I good enough and whatever, and you start thinking about these items in your treasure chest, all the things that you have done, I could see how that can directly help you feel more confident and fulfill that concern. Because I know it's a big thing for people. They never feel like they're doing enough. I'm the king of that. Like I literally feel that all the time, no matter how much I'm doing. So it's just so good to like reflect on that treasure chest that we are building through all the stuff that we are doing, right? That's awesome.
Yeah, like I said, it's all rooted in the fact that you actually care. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be so concerned. And that's just, it's how we work. So let's go to the other side for a second. And I don't want anybody to beat themselves up here. There's a gap, and I'll be perfectly honest with you. Everybody's got some gap in what I'm about to describe. Okay. The important part is how big is the gap and the constant effort to close it. And the gap is this, right? There are two versions of us. There's our public version. That's the facade we put on and how we show up to the world that hears the words that we speak and sees our actions, right? And if we speak our thoughts, they'll hear how we think, right? But then there's the private version of us that no one sees. They don't see any of the actions. They don't know what we're thinking. They don't know how we're feeling, right? They don't know our good habits, our bad habits. The gap between how you operate in that truly isolated private world versus how you show up to the public is directly relative to the level of imposter syndrome that will show up when you least want it to. Meaning, if you show up here as a rock star, let's just say you show up here as like the godly married guy, right? Yet in your private world, you cheat on your wife and you watch porn all night. There's a big gap, and you will not be able to hide from that. It will resonate inside of you. That's an extreme, but I need that for an example. Every single one of us has a slight separation at best or at minimum between our private and our, meaning we come up confident and strong in public, yet we have doubts and fears in private. And that's okay. That's normal. But how far apart those are will dictate at a high level the true imposter syndrome, because deep down inside, you know you're being an imposter. Does that make sense? That's the one we got to watch out for. Now, should you judge yourself for it or call yourself a bad person or consider yourself broken? No. You recognize it, understand it for what it is. It's a throttle to who you're capable of becoming, and get to work on it. Like close the gap. But here's the thing. No one's going to pat you on the back for doing a good job because nobody knows. No one's going to reward you for making the right decision because nobody knows. This is where it's got to mean enough to you personally to raise your standards. No one else is going to do it for you. Oftentimes you hear that no one's coming to save you. You know what? That's driven right here. No one can save you in your private life because no one knows your private life. That's 100% on you. You guys get the context of that? Greatest doubt lives in the space between who we are and who we pretend to be.
I think this really ties into a lot of core things in regards to why it is so imperative to have a very well balanced life as well, and why it's so imperative to like focus on your health and focus on good habits in general and in these micro commitments that you make to yourself. I'm not sure if that's coming up or that's part of this, but the micro commitments, if you say you're going to wake up and you don't, you say you're going to work out and you don't, you say you're going to underwrite deals and you don't, you say you're going to talk to wholesalers and you don't, you say you're going to talk to capital partners and you don't, like that in private really will resonate with how you feel like an imposter in public when it so this is really good, and why you might feel like an imposter because you're not doing the things that you told yourself you're going to do in private.
Cool. Let's move on to number 3 here. Decision fatigue and analysis paralysis. Anyone know what I'm talking about? Now, of course, you're engineering brains, right? This is like built into your psyche that, yeah, we got to keep analyzing and nothing's ever completely done. And that's where you struggle the most, right? So let me just share, Mike, maybe I shared this when we were at the event, just a quick analogy for you, right? I'll tell you guys something, and I've learned this many times through life, right? That so many times we think we need to know more information in order to do the next thing, when in fact, that information that we think we need is only available in doing the next thing. Like that insight, that feedback can only be gained by taking the next actions. No other way to get it. And I go one step further and say there's certain high level wisdom, insight, knowledge, expertise that can only be unlocked in our failing forward, in making the mistakes, where it's impossible to reveal it without going through that process. So this goes all the way back to our step one, reassociating our meaning around failure. Failure is a necessary process. And the more willing we are to fail forward, the faster we will move towards our desired goals and outcomes. Now, decision failure. So here's a cute little like analogy, that the GPS analogy, where let's say you went out, say you're in an area you're not familiar with, you went out on a date, or your husband or wife or a friend or whatever, you go out to dinner. A few hours later, you come out and you're about to leave and you're like, man, I don't know which way to go, left or right out of the parking lot, right? It happens all the time because we use the GPS to get there. We weren't paying attention, and voila, we don't know which way to go. So you sit there and wait for your GPS to give you instructions which way to go. And what happens when you sit in the parking lot waiting on your GPS? Anyone know? Nothing. Zero, zilch, nothing. GPS guides up there don't even know you exist because you're not taking any action. They have no idea where you are, where you want to go, what your desires are. Finally, say, screw it, I'm gone. You pull out of the driveway, you take a left, and immediately they go, oh, I see you, Patty, and I see where you are, and I see where you want to go. I got your back. Go take the next right, and I'll give you the shortest path home in the quickest time possible. The important takeaway here, we thought we needed to know which way to go before we left the parking lot, but in fact, we couldn't figure out which way to go until we left the parking lot. And this is huge. There's no wrong turn. There's only moving forward. There's only taking action. No, Pat, if I went right, it'd be quicker. That's irrelevant because you couldn't get that insight until you went. And no matter which way you go, the GPS guides, which in our world is the universe, steps up and says, I got you. I see where you are, where you want to go. You're very intentional. I'm going to get you there the fastest way possible. Just buckle in. That's how this game works. So when we sit back, analyzing, right? Studying, practicing, training, that is nothing more than theory until we decide to do something with it. We owned a gym for 13 years. We taught, it was a lifestyle fitness center, but it taught martial arts, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, MMA, all that kind of stuff in the Jiu-Jitsu world. And I tell this to new practitioners all the time, right? Said, you know what? You could take one guy, give him an entire year to analyze, study, learn about every move, every top practitioner in Jiu-Jitsu, entire year, as many hours a week as he can possibly fit in, okay? And 1 year later, he's going to compete against this guy. This guy has come to the gym for 2 weeks, 4 times a week for an hour a day. So he's got 8 hours of mat time, of action underneath him. This guy here will defeat this guy here every single time, without exception, if everything else is equal. Study doesn't produce results. Training doesn't produce results. What produces results is taking action. Now, yes, we do need a certain amount of knowledge and training to take that first step, no doubt, right? So there's got to be a little balance there, but I'm trying to mitigate the need to overanalyze and use study as a distraction from actually doing the work. Studying is akin to standing up in a stand and cheering for the team. You're not changing anything. You're not causing anything. If anything, you're just going to be an effect of what's going on around you. That makes sense when I put it that way?
And can I give a rule of thumb for a lot of people starting out? So like how I think about it now, especially is like a 2-to-1 ratio that then switches to a 1-to-2 ratio. So basically when you're starting out, 2 hours of studying, 1 hour of action. At a certain point, you got to flip that. And then it's 1 hour of studying, 2 hours of action, right? You do have to study. It is imperative. Like, say we're talking about money, other people's money, all that stuff. You have to study to some extent, but without the action, it means nothing. And then at a certain point, you have to be taking way more action than just studying. The problem is, especially for people like me, you guys, some of you have heard my story. It took me 18 months of looking at deals, developing a buy box, analyzing deals, 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 till I went to a freaking meetup and got pissed off at the people who, not at them, but the fact that they were the ones buying the deals that I was analyzing, but I was too afraid. I was too nervous to actually take the next step. I was stuck in analysis paralysis, quite literally. I was stuck in that deal analysis paralysis instead of taking the action, which was making an offer. So I gave myself an ultimatum and said, Michael, if you want to buy and hold real estate, you have to put properties under contract. To do that, you have to make an offer. You cannot stop at just analyzing deals. So that's where it's like, I'm studying, I'm doing the thing, I'm busy for 18 months where I could have bought and hold real estate. Well, thankfully, that also was the reason why now I crush it, because of the fact that I was able to scale so much after that point, because of the fact that I quite literally understood how much of a detriment that was, because learning without action is literally just, I mean, it's not that it's worthless, but what Hermosi says, it's basically just entertainment, right? You're just a spectator at that point. All you're doing is you're just spectating the game, which is cool. I mean, it's better than randomly scrolling random TikToks or whatever. At least you're learning something. But without taking the action, you're not doing anything but entertaining yourself. Take the action. Don't get stuck. And it's hard. I'm literally talking to myself. I'm talking to a mirror. Michael, take the action. Create more content. Have a social media plan. Do these things. I'm talking to myself at the same time for these new levels that we're at. And for a lot of you guys, depending on where your investing journey is at, you have these various tiers that you need to overcome as well. Don't get stuck. Keep pushing forward.
Oh, great. And that's a great add in here, Mike. And if we went back and looked at it, and I said, well, Mike, why'd you get caught up, studying so much in the analysis paralysis and decision fatigue? And ultimately be found in the idea that it's a fear-based response, that it's a safe place. You can't lose if you don't leave your office and don't make an offer on anything, just studying shit. There's no loss. I mean, there is a loss, but we don't recognize it till down the road. Inaction is one of our greatest losses, our greatest sacrifices, right? So you pick the safe spot. I'm not, picking on you, but I'm saying those are distraction techniques to avoid doing the work and still feel good somehow about doing it. That's ultimately what it comes down to. And what are we afraid of? We're afraid of the unknown. All fears are anchored in one thing, not knowing, right? We don't know what's going to happen if we make the offer. Well, no shit, because we haven't made an offer yet, right? We lack clarity. But clarity doesn't come from thinking. We can't think our way into clarity. We can only act our way into clarity, because what we're not clear on are the results, the outcomes of the action, which can only be made clear through the action. Does that make sense? That's how those go together. Okay. And to your point, Mike, yes, you need a baseline of knowledge and expertise to move to the next level, but it's just a piece of the process. What really matters is getting on the mats, getting tapped out a few times, and applying. I'll give you a new definition of intelligence. We were brought up, raised with a very simple definition, IQ, intellectual intelligence, which effectively is really how good you memorize stuff. Let's be honest, right? My definition, which is a lot better, is the rate of implementation of new information. That's intelligence. The rate of implementation of new information. After all, what good is information if you don't do anything with it? To Hermosi's point, right? It's of no value to you. And truthfully, information cannot become true knowledge without the action in between. That's where we learn, where we convert it from information to genuine knowledge.
And I just really want to hit this one because this one's so important, because everyone who's watching this, you're at some extent already knowledgeable enough to take action in real estate investing. Whether you're on my YouTube, my Instagram, Wealth of Real Estate, Super Investors, wherever you're at watching this, I already know you have enough knowledge to take the next step. A lot of you guys are stuck before you could even start. You're stuck watching, consuming instead of executing. So I'm talking literally to you. Patrick is literally talking to you right now. You know who we're talking to. You feel it in your soul. You know that you should be taking more action, but you're spending more time learning instead of executing, right? Start executing some more. You know that you need to, whatever it is, wherever you're at, take that next step. And I will say, ironically enough, I mentioned the story of the 18 months and the analysis paralysis. Well, Pace Morby, my real estate mentor, a lot of your guys' mentors watching this, literally told me one of my biggest superpowers is my quick feedback loop. In essence, I learn, I execute. It is not always perfect. It rarely is perfect the first time. And then I execute, I see the results, I learn from that, I improve the process, right? That feedback loop, that implementation of new information is the cheat code. That is the intelligence that allows you to execute, especially out of this hole. That only comes through action. You're going to do it. It's not going to be perfect. You should learn from it. You should improve your process. You should do it again better this time. Literally, that is the feedback loop. That is exactly how you improve. That is how you gain clarity, that is how you take massive action.
No, love that. And that brings up the word momentum, Mike, out of the, that's, we've heard that word all our lives, and it's, a core of physics, right? Momentum, velocity times mass equals momentum. And as it applies in our world, that's a real thing. When we take a behavior and repeat it often, we build momentum. It's a form of energy. That momentum is necessary to get through the challenges that show up. We'll get to a point in our career where without a huge head of momentum, we won't be able to get through the next challenge. It's part of the escalation of how the world is laid out for us, right? How many of us have ever suffered from starting something because we got super excited and motivated and amped up about it, went all in for a few days or maybe a few weeks, and then somehow stopped, and then bitched and whined about it for a while and beat ourselves up about it. Finally got the guts to start something new or the same thing again. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to get going all over again, and we start again, and then we stop again. And each time we do that, it costs us dearly. It creates a self-doubt in ourselves. We build up a new belief around ourselves that we may be smart, we may have resources, we may be knowledgeable, but we're not the one to carry this one over the finish line. We don't have that in us. We start creating this belief that we can't outperform, right? And then at some point, and I'll just forewarn you all, right? You can only play that game for so long, because one day you'll wake up and you will not have that fire in you to do it again. Every time you quit, you slow down, you breach that momentum. It's literally throwing a dice, a roulette table, man. You may roll the wrong dice and not start again.
This is so freaking true. I think literally my biggest key to success, it was not through taking massive action for a day. It came through taking consistent small action. My results that I've achieved through real estate investing did not come from 16-hour days for 1 week. It came from 1 to 4 hours, 5 to 7 days a week for 5 years, right? Consistently taking action, building that momentum. Does that mean certain days I would not do what I need to? Of course, but it's that consistently taking action, building that momentum and running with it. And it's so funny that you use the word momentum, because when I told my mentor Pace in August of last year that I was going to retire, quit my W-2, baby girl was 3 months old, I was going to retire. He said, are you crazy? You have all the momentum on your side. Why would you stop now? Now is the most fun part for real estate investing. Help other people invest. Now you're going to do things at way bigger, higher levels. And within just months of that, because of the momentum that I've been building, and I didn't stop it at that moment, a lot of you guys have seen me publicly raise on the fractional platform, so everyone can see it publicly, raise like $1.5 million within 72 hours, 800,000 on one, around 500,000 on the other. You guys have seen me do that, which is something I've never actually done. I've never raised that much money or that quickly for certain. That's what Patrick's talking about. That's quite literally, you need the momentum to take it to the next level. And the irony is, early 2023, I raised no money. I didn't raise money outside of transactional funds until early 2023. It was even hard to raise my first $50,000 for real estate investing. And now I'm raising $1.5 million in literally just days, and with just a few posts. And this is literally what the momentum does. The momentum of doing the thing consistently over a long enough period of time and not stopping. And I was almost my own worst enemy. I almost sabotaged myself. Thankfully, that's why you have mentors pushing you forward. But it's that consistent action, not taking your foot off the gas. Take that foot off the gas. You're setting yourself up for a lot of failure, because like you said, it is really hard to restart. I don't even know if people have the ability to restart 2-3 times in life. You know what I mean? I think that's already so much energy as a chemical engineer, as someone who, it takes a lot for that activation energy to get that chemical reaction going, right? So like, it literally takes so much effort to get going. 2-3 times might be all you have in life to get the momentum going. It's the same thing for, let's make it gym, right? The person that goes and cranks out 4-hour workout one day in the gym is not ripped. The person who's been working out 3 to 6 days a week for an hour a day for literally months, years, is the one that gets the results. This is so good because it applies to literally everything.
Yeah, no, of course. And that was a great add-on too, Mike. It's not in this lineup I'm following, but I got to throw in the word overwhelm for here just for a second, right? Because it's part of the journey too. Have you ever experienced overwhelm? Like, a lot of hands would show up, right? Of course. And overwhelm can stop you dead in your tracks, and it can crush you. It can stop your momentum if you're not careful, right? So what is the root cause of overwhelm? And I'll put it in its simplest terms, right? Overwhelm more times than not. Two real causes. One, a lack of clarity. We don't know how to get between where we are and where we want to go. We just don't see the path. And that becomes overwhelming because we don't know what to do next. That's number one. And number two, when we actually are presented with the path, it's long, rocky, challenging, uphill, downhill, rivers, all that kind of crap. We start to look at it in its totality. And we look at where we are and where we got to go. And we're like, we can't possibly do that. Becomes overwhelming. So let me share this idea. Here's a way to look at it again out of the MMA world. If you had to fight somebody in a gym, 5 guys had to fight them, but you get a choice: fight them all at once or one at a time. What would you choose? Naturally, we choose one at a time. Of course, there's no guarantee still, but one at a time, we at least believe it's possible to get through this hell that we're about to get through. And that's how we have to look at the totality of what we have out in front of us, between us and our big, hairy, audacious goal, right? We can't look at the entire thing at one time. We have to look at the thing that's next. Now, let me give you a little tool here. You guys will love this. It's called the ladder. Picture a ladder. We all have a ladder. At the very top of that ladder is that thing you want, that goal that you have, whatever it may be. And it could be, 6 months from now, it could be 5 years from now, it doesn't matter. We know where we are right now, and we know where we want to go. We have a straight line, this ladder in between. Now, between our resources and our resourcefulness and the things that have to happen in order to accomplish that outcome, we put rungs on the ladder, okay? One after another, and you put them in the order that they got to have, that they need to be executed. And the rungs are simply the steps that have to be traveled in order to achieve the goal, the outcome. And this becomes our strategy, okay? Now, here's the twist to it, and this is important. And this goes against kind of like the guru mantra of like, hey, never take your eye off the goal. Once you have your ladder, and your ladder is on your wall, it's not on someone else's wall. You're setting your goals. You're not chasing someone else's dreams. That's a big part of this. The ladder's on your wall. You have your rungs in place. Take your eye off the goal and only focus on the next rung. And here's why. One, we always have one more rung in us, no matter what. It's part of our human psyche. We can always go one more. Two, that one more, that next rung, at least it's believable that it's possible. No guarantees, but we know it's possible. And the human soul, that is all it needs to fight like hell. If we know that what I'm doing is possible, we can go all in on it. If we don't believe it's possible, we're done. We're dead in the water. If we set a goal that we just don't have clarity in, we can't see it because our ladder goes through the clouds, we're not connected to it, we just don't see how it's possible, we're dead in the water. We put the rungs on a ladder that get us to the goal, and now we focus on the next rung. And you know what? We don't take our eyes off that rung till both these mitts are safely there. Now we can look up to the next one rung at a time, and we always have one more rung in us. So that gives us clarity and outcome, and it reduces the overwhelm down to fighting one guy at a time. Again, there's no guarantees, and no one's promised you that this journey is going to be easy, but at least it's believable. It's possible to produce the results that you want. That makes sense to y'all? You
Yeah,
can apply it to any part of your life.
that was freaking phenomenal. I mean, and I like that you actually mentioned the ladder, like regardless of the timeline it takes you to get to that goal. Because if that's the goal you truly care about, I heard Dan Coe posted something about this. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he literally said, like, so many people are so focused on how quickly they're going to achieve their goal, but like, who gives a hoot how long it takes? Because if it truly matters to you, what are you going to be doing instead? Would you rather achieve that goal or not? And that should help you guys really. I think sometimes people are like, I'm going to get $1 million of real estate this year. Like, I'm going to do that, or I'm going to get $10,000 or $100,000 of cash flow. That's the goal. And then you time bound it, which is good to have smart goals. However, if you're truly committed to your goal, if it takes plus or minus some time, just keep moving one rung at a time. It's not about, did I achieve this huge goal? It's, did I take it to the next step? Am I keep progressing forward and forward and forward? And as Pace mentions, I've heard him say it plenty of times, like, overwhelm for any of us is absolutely necessary in our journey, because overwhelm means we're trying to do something that we don't have the tools, skills, resources, money, whatever, knowledge to do yet. That's why your ladder analogy, though, on the other levels, well, it's necessary, but it can literally stop your momentum. If you break it down, rung by rung and you're moving one step further every time, that is how you're going to overcome this limit. And that's literally, I don't mean to keep plugging, but super investors, that's what I help real estate investors do. I help them scale their portfolio by understanding the step-by-step blueprint. Here's exactly your rungs. Stop questioning it. Like, here is the rungs you have to take, the skills you have to develop, the actions you have to take. Now it's up to you to execute. I can't force someone to execute. I can provide you clarity of the path, and you need to understand the rungs that you have to take. But then also, on the other note, my free wealth through real estate community, why I did a whole training on bird dogging today. I did a whole training on that because if you want to be a buy and hold real estate investor, you're gonna have to develop skills. If you want to do it the way that I do it, which is buying great creatively financed deals, raising money from other people to do so, well, a bird dog, what you're doing is you're developing the skill sets of finding deals, analyzing deals, connecting them with end buyers, right? You're developing these rungs, these skills that you have to develop to then be the one that buys these deals. It all makes sense in the big picture. I'm giving you your goal and I'm giving you a bite-sized chunk of it. I'm giving you what your rungs should be so you can develop those skills to get to the end goal. This is so good because all the things that you are saying, it seems like I do implement some of these things. I just didn't know, I didn't understand it. This was part of my innate, like my nature, I guess, or I didn't necessarily, definitely not verbalize it. So hearing you say all this stuff is so good. Like, this is so good because it provides a lot of clarity into what I do and the way I think and why I'm able to help other people. Because I kind of do this without even understanding this. Understanding this is going to take it to the next freaking level. So thank you for that.
And Mike, none of this stuff's new. Like, I'm not some special genius with stuff you all never heard before. I may present it a little differently, but this is just being human, right? This is just how humans operate and stuff we got to deal with. So it's really just a conversation.
Hey, Pat,
Yeah.
I wanted to add to all of that on the rungs. If people, myself perhaps, can remember that they're doing better than they think they are, when they're on that rung and they're, if you look down, they've come up. And there is that, I don't know, sort of aid to remember that you're doing better than you think you are.
I love that. Yeah, you can actually. So glad you brought that up, Patty. So I'll add to that idea,
right?
right?
That is your treasure chest. If you take account for this stuff, this is beautiful how it all ties back into each other. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to talk about this a little later, but let's just talk about the word inspiration for a second, right? Instead of being a motivational junkie, a drug addict, let's talk about what does it take to wake up in the morning truly inspired to, even if you slept like shit, you're jumping out of bed because you can't wait to get at it. That happens when we can connect the dots between what we do every day and making forward progress towards something that matters to us, a worthy goal. And what you're talking about there, Patty, is exactly that, right? Your rungs will give you that factual information. And to the words that you're using, Mike, a feedback loop. When we can create a daily feedback loop, a measurement, a way to measure to see that today we progressed over yesterday. We don't need to move miles in a day. We just need to know that the work we're doing is moving us towards our desires, our dreams, our aspirations. That is inspiring. When we can't see a connection between the hard work and what we're trying to accomplish, it becomes very uninspired. And that's where we start tapping into, man, I got to go watch another motivational video just to show up and do my job today. That's not the motivational video is not, that's the aspirin to the headache, but it doesn't solve the cause of the headache. The headache's being caused because you lost a connection between the work you're doing and why you're doing it in the first place. Does that make sense? So I'm glad you brought that up. That was a good call out there. Let's move on to this one. Chronic stress and anxiety. So, and this one's near and dear to me because I've worked with so many people that have struggled with this, including my own daughters and friends of theirs, especially coming out of the COVID years, right? It's a complicated little space. I'm going to speak in a bit of a narrow zone of it as it relates to most entrepreneurs that deal with, when I say chronic, just ongoing, not clinical. Chronic, meaning we repeat it. Clinical is a little different and may need slightly different approach or not, but I'm not trying to say this is the end all to all of that. Okay. In other words, I respect the depth of how this can affect us. But with that said, chronic stress and anxiety, you can't out hustle a deregulated nervous system. So our body has a survival mechanism, our fight or flight system, which is brilliant. If we're presented with a life or death situation, our body will take all of its resources, pump them into our muscles, our eyesight, our ears, makes us fast. We become very space aware. We can defend ourselves and hopefully survive to fight another day. That's the purpose of our survival system, our parasympathetic nervous system and our sympathetic nervous system, right? And in doing so, it makes sacrifices. One of them being our immune system. Doesn't shut it off completely, but it tunes it way down to nothing. And other vital organs we need to be healthy human beings, okay? And a point I'm trying to bring up there is when we get into a state of chronic stress and anxiety, we're running in this deregulated or dysregulated nervous system, a compromised immune system. We are prone to disease and sickness. Why? Is it because of the grizzly bear that jumped out and threatened to eat us? No, we're not confronted with those things anymore. It's because of what's going on in our ears, between our ears here. That matter right there. Stress and anxiety is fundamentally triggered when we start worrying about a future event or a past event. It's when we leave the present. We start asking questions like, what if? And what follows that is never anything we want to know about. What if I fail? What if I lose? What if this doesn't work out? What if they hate me? What if they judge me? Right? Or we go back to a past experience that was a painful experience, and our mind creates the thoughts around it. So our body relives the past experience. It's the same physiological chemical stamp that it did back then and triggers this fight or flight in us again. Here's the big part. When we trigger it with our mind, our thoughts, we don't have a way back out. When that grizzly bear jumped out, when we were jogging down the trail and he jumped out and freaked us out, and we got superhuman and we ran to a tree and climbed the tree. Well, we realized that at one point the bear left. We climbed out of the tree and we're safe again. Our body naturally sought a state of homeostasis. It came back. It chemically balanced back out. But in a mentally triggered one, there's no out. Anybody ever wake up 3 a.m. losing your shit, a near full-blown anxiety attack because your mind is just out of control, right? It never shut down. You were tired, close your eyes, your system never shut down. Now you don't get the rest. Now you don't recover. Now you wake up in the same deregulated nervous system that you went to bed with. And now you're less prepared to deal with challenges, emotional challenges, etc. the next day. And it snowballs. That's what I'm talking about here. Okay. I'm going to challenge you to be aware of where you are, not physically, mentally, and emotionally. Keeping your head and your feet in the same place, the same time. Don't let your thoughts go to a future event that you don't want to see happen, and don't go back reliving shit that doesn't matter anymore. Here's ultimately what triggers this. When we go to a future event that's made up, that has not happened yet, does not exist, it is not real, it means it's out of our control. We can't change it. We're only thinking about it. It's not even in existence. And when we go to a past event, reliving some crappy event in our lives, we can't change that one either because it's already gone. So we now put ourselves in a state of out of control. And that's what triggers the stress. And then when it builds long enough, turns into an anxiety. And no doubt, right, it's a full physiological body response, and it can be crippling. So appreciate that you can't out hustle. You can't work harder than, you can't try to outproduce it through action. It's one of the few times you got to step back, study a little mindfulness. An easy way out is to breathe your way out. What does that mean? This little box drill. You breathe in for 4 seconds, you hold your breath for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, and you hold your breath for 4 seconds. You repeat that 2 or 3 times, and your body will naturally come back into a homeostasis. It'll get your chemicals to naturally come back, so at least you're physically feeling a bit more normal. Part 2, stop worrying about things that you can't control. That's the easiest way to get out of control. Only allow your thoughts to go to things that are in your control, that you can affect, which means nothing in the future, nothing in the past, only in the here and now. Here and now is the only time you can do anything. It's always been that way and it will always be that way. If you don't believe me, ask yourself, when's the last time you did something tomorrow? Sounds like a stupid question, but you can't do something tomorrow. It's an impossible happening because tomorrow is not real. There is only now. And I know some of you are struggling with this right now because you're like, no, tomorrow's the day after today. Tomorrow's Thursday. It's not a real time. Only now exists. Only now exists. And we have to appreciate that.
The 4-second breath square. That's a good way when you're feeling it, your anxiety increase or your stress increase, or you feel yourself thinking about the future or the past. How do you stop that? Are there any other tactics that you have that like that can help? Because I assume this is very common. I would just give one thing. And I used to be like this, like having an abundant mindset really helps with this as well. Especially when you're inside of various communities, like investing communities and these other things. You see people, especially on social media, like it's literally designed to trigger emotions for you. When you are seeing someone, oh, they just joined this thing and they just got $100,000 wholesale fee, or they just started their investing journey and they've got 50 properties or whatever it is, or this guy's a billionaire. I don't know, whatever it is, like comparing yourself to anyone else is going to cause you stress and anxiety. And honestly, what that does is then that limits, that overwhelms you, makes you feel worse, and that prevents you from actually taking the actions you need to then achieve the goals that you want. Like, I don't know what to call that thing, but I know all about that. And then having an abundant mindset, instead saying, someone that has achieved this thing, if that's truly what you want to achieve, a lot of times we're tricked into thinking we want to achieve goals that we don't actually care about. We just see other people do it and we're like, oh, I think that's the path I want to pursue, or shiny objects or this or that. But instead, when you think about the things that you want to achieve and someone else has done it, perfect. They have done it, so that means it's possible for you to do the same. That's the best way to think about it. Abundance. They did it. I know it's possible. I can do the same thing. Not they did it. I'm salty. Why didn't I have that? This thing, I'm a failure. Because all you can do, think they did it. I can accomplish that thing as well because someone else has done it. Someone else has done it, so then I can too. And now I need to take action to actually get there, right? This all ties back into the whole thing, but I just really want to highlight that because I know this comparison piece is so huge, in especially in these investing communities and social media, where people cannot overcome this comparison thing. We all do, right? We all fall into it. I think I'm a little bit better at not comparing because I don't consume a lot of social media, so I don't see it as much. That's, I guess, my secret. I don't see it as much. But when you're comparing, you're going to be stressed and anxious. Once you're in that loop, it's really hard. I mean, so I don't know if you have anything else for that, any other tactics, but the breath one's one I'm going to implement. So thank you.
Yeah, and just to what you're talking about, when we go into that comparison mode, Mike, we always, we compare our worst to their best on their best day and our worst day. And what we see, it takes our eyes off of what we actually want to pursue. We don't see what we want. We start to see the gap between them and us, and that's lack. And that's where our focus goes. We start focusing on what we don't have, not on what we want. So it completely derails our train. And now our efforts aren't even in our favor. Any of our efforts going down the wrong tracks, right? That's the danger of comparison. Now, if we're comparing yourself to be a little competitive, but you're still rooting for their success as well, totally different. That's a totally different frame. That's an abundant mindset. The idea that all ships rise on a rising tide, completely different. Okay. I'm talking about when their success makes you feel like a loser. You can't compare. You'll lose that battle every time. Now, back to your question. The short answer gets into a bit of a complicated subject, but we'll try to take a quick stab at it here, right? So yes, breathing your way out. If you're about to go on stage and you're all nervous, that breathing drill works awesome because we're triggering the same part of our psychology and our nervous system. It works the exact same way, right? Where your focus goes matters because where our focus goes then parlays into thoughts and thinking. But we got to stop and pause here for a second and identify the idea that thoughts and thinking are not the same thing. Thoughts come naturally. Thoughts are delivered by a higher intelligence. We don't choose them. They happen for us. Thinking is intentional. Thoughts are a noun. Thinking is a verb. Thinking comes out of our ego and more times than not is not serving our greater cause. We can't think ourselves into a better place. That thinking will bring us into a lesser place. We can try to reduce our thinking and let our natural thoughts rise up, which will get us into a better place. And that's where I say it gets a little complicated here.
We're talking like subconscious, conscious, kind of that kind of stuff. And then how you react to your thoughts that are coming in. Okay.
So another way of putting it is teaching yourself to be bored. We're at a point in life where we have so much external stimulus. Being bored feels bad, right? When I say being bored, meaning just sit with yourself. You say, well, what do I do? Don't do anything. I don't want a premeditated meditation, none of that. Just be with yourself. Once we're able to turn off the noise and turn off the ego driven thinking, that's where our creativity comes back on. See, when we're being stimulated from the outside, it shuts off our creativity. That natural part of us, it just goes dormant. And now we're running off of external stimulus constantly to come up with new ideas and new thoughts instead of shutting it all down and letting it happen organically and naturally. But that's where this piece I'm talking about will come back. So let me just add a couple more thoughts on this.
Can I just like that is so good. The overstimulus, like the overstimulation, whatever, is such a key part because we are so used to, oh, just put on this podcast and learn this thing and this audiobook and then that thing and that video and that. It is so stressful and anxious because you will never, like, we're all trying to like learn everything and do whatever. You will never know or learn everything. That's why it's so imperative to sometimes close off these stimuli. I don't know what to even call it, so that you can allow yourself to be creative within your own natural self, which is huge. But also, like, one practical thing that I'm doing now, I'm by no means the guy for this, but I've recently started, before I start my workday, I take 5 minutes, I sit on the ground, I do nothing. I just kind of just sit there. I sit there. If thoughts come in, I let them in and I let them out. And then 10 minutes before bed, I quite literally do the same thing. Before I go to sleep, I just let the thoughts come in, thoughts come out, and that's it. Sometimes it makes me tired, which is good. But really, that's what I've started doing, just like a little bit of boredom. And there's a lot more to go. But for me, did not need guided meditation. I did not need anything else. I needed to just have complete stillness in certain times of my day regularly. So I like that you hit that because that is something I'm actively working on right now as well.
So let me add this one last thought because we're tied into thinking here, right? So it's not the events in our lives, but rather the interpretation of the events that dictate how we feel, whether we feel good or bad. So in other words, it's not the circumstance, it's the meaning and then the thinking about the meaning that we attach to the circumstance. So our feelings come not from the actual events, but rather from our thinking about the events. So it's not the event that is, our experience is no longer the reality. Our experiences are thinking about the reality. Reality is what the objective circumstance happening right in front of us without any thought or meaning is. But once we add a label and meaning and think about it, that becomes our perceived reality, which is a complete departure from what is actually happening. And that's why, Mike, you could go to be experienced like an event with 20 different people and all 20 get interviewed and every one of them be truthful, but share a different experience of what just happened based on meaning and thinking about the meaning, thoughts and what they are thinking about their thoughts.
And that's good because that's that failure piece, right? Either you failed or you took action and you learned how to do something better the next time. Quite literally, imagine the difference in feeling of I failed this thing or I took this action, I learned on how I can do it better. That's so good. Just the way that you're framing it. Someone else posted in a comment where your focus goes, your energy flows. Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. So why don't you give yourself the best advantage that you can? Exactly what you said.
But so just to wrap up and to your question, number 4, chronic stress and anxiety, breathing your way out of it is a good physical start. It's an action. It'll redirect where your thoughts are. And then number 2 is controlling it's the thoughts that are the thinking that is getting us. We've got to shut that down, which often means let's get back to the present. Let's focus on something right here, right now. When I get really wound up, I'll close my eyes lightly, right? And I'll try to hear myself breathe, which is a crazy exercise. But what it's doing is it's turning off all the other stimulus from the exterior. And I'm just turning on my internal ears, if you will, right? And it's just grounding me in the moment.
Because that helps me a lot. When I feel overwhelmed, anxious, or whatever, the best thing to do is to take control of what I can take control of, whatever that is. Whether it's breathing, whether it's listening to yourself breathe, whether it's I can go outside on a walk, I can do anything, doing something that you have control over, which is your body. You can physically control the things that you do. Doing something that you have control over really helps me limit my stress and anxiety because that happens to everyone, but like that is a powerful tool. And I like that you shared hearing yourself breathe is just do something. If it's 5 push-ups, anything that I can do that I can control myself doing right now, I'm back to me having control. You want control of your life and your actions. You do not want to be a passive participant, a spectator of your life, because that shit will fly right past you. You'll be very disappointed at what you did or definitely did not accomplish that you wanted to. So thank you for that.
Yeah. So, all right, we're going to do the last one here, and then I'm going to go through 5 questions that we got to ask ourselves all the time. So don't let me forget that. Okay. All right. So here, number 5, isolation and loneliness, which you're like, hey, Pat, why are you bringing that up? Well, guess what? Entrepreneurship is a lonely world. And I'm not the first one to say that. Right. And this doesn't mean that you're alone. It means that you're lonely, and 2 different things. Loneliness isn't the absence of people. It's the absence of being seen. And you say, well, why and how, right? In entrepreneurship, in the game we're in, no one really gets what we're doing, what's going on with us. They don't understand what's at stake day over day. They don't hear the inner voices that we have to listen to, doubting ourselves and questioning ourselves. They're not in our brain. They're not in our business. They're not in our daily burdens. They don't know what's going on the inside. And even when they care, we still feel like we're carrying the entire load on our shoulders by ourselves. And being, classic entrepreneurs, men and women, right? We do the same thing oftentimes. Someone says, hey, you need a hand? You're like, no, I got this. I'll figure it out. Guys are probably worse at this than women, right? No, I got it. We won't ask for help. We'll just continue to carry the burden. You want to know the kind of like the call world for like, I'm burning down? You ever go into a Starbucks and you see somebody like, hey, what's the man? What's going on? How you doing? And they go, oh man, living a dream. Living a dream is code for all my shit's burning to the ground and I'm circling the drain, man. You have no idea the hell I'm going through right now. This smile is forced. I hope you're having a good fucking day. That's what that's code for. Okay. And that's the world we live in. And that's a lonely world. And it has nothing to do with whether or not we're surrounded with other bodies. And the antidote is this: we've got to open up. We've got to expose ourselves. And that's why we're so sealed up, because we're so worried about what others will think about the struggles and the challenges and the setbacks and the heartache and the thoughts that are going through our head. We're so worried about the judgment of others. We've got to free ourselves of that. Free ourselves of that by saying, man, you know what? The only path between where I am and where I got to go includes me allowing people into my space. We can't do this alone. You want to know what loneliness does for us? It causes doubt. It compromises our confidence in ourselves, because we don't have a sounding board to say, no, you got this. I've seen you do it before. You're awesome at this. Shut up with that talk. We keep it all to ourselves, and we never build ourselves up. We always chop ourselves down. So it becomes very destructive in that way. And at the risk of somebody judging you, exposing yourself to have somebody in your life that will support you is far, far greater gain than a possible risk. Now, will there be people that judge your game? Absolutely. And they're small people. And they're doing it because, you know what? You're shining a light on how small their game is. And it makes them uncomfortable. So they have their only defense is, I'm going to judge your shit instead. Yeah, those people exist and they don't matter. And that's the part we got to understand. Our job is not to get accolades from every person we run into. We got to stop seeking that validation, and opening up to other people and seeking validation are 2 way different worlds. The validation that we're talking about is the only way I can feel good about myself is if other people tell me I'm okay. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay? We know we're rock stars. We're built for this kind of stuff, but that doesn't mean we're built to do it alone. That part's a lie. Human beings are made to serve other people. Every single one of you have something so special in you, so unique, God-given innate skills and talents, a recipe that no other human on earth has. And you have an obligation, a responsibility to your creator to make the most of it. And the only way we can do that is with the help of others. But that also means, of course, we help others too. Does that kind of explain that, Mike, enough to get an understanding here?
Yeah, I have no comment. All I'm gonna do is mic drop. I mean, that was so good. Now, as a practical exercise, we have 5 questions that we need to ask ourselves.
Yes. Now, this could be an entire another hour, but we're going to jam this in very few minutes. Okay. I'm going to go quick. Just appreciate these are whenever there's something we want, these questions are critical to ask and answer honestly. Number 1, and it sounds like so obvious, duh. Why are you even saying that, Pat? Because most time when I ask somebody this question and I need them to honestly answer me, I got to wait minutes or hours to get a damn answer. What do you want? So many adults have such a hard time answering that question. What do you want? If you can't answer that, then the outcome, that thing you think you want, is impossible to achieve. And we'll spend days, weeks, months circling. A lot of energy, a lot of resources pouring out the door, but no progress towards anything that you're going to put your pin on and say, this is mine, I've achieved that. What do I want? And make sure it's yours. Make sure you're not chasing someone else's dream.
Can I just, full transparency for everyone watching this thing right now? This is where I struggle right now. What do I want? I've achieved all the financial successes that I wanted to. I've achieved the real estate portfolio, all these things. And I know a lot of you are working towards that yourselves right now, right? But it is so imperative. Like the reason why I achieved my financial freedom and my financial success, I was very clear on what I wanted and how I wanted to get there. I wanted to achieve a certain level of financial freedom through real estate investing. Very clear and execute on that. Now I'm very confused on what is it that I want? What do I want my life to look like? And literally Pace said this. I don't know when he said this, but I quite literally heard him say, the problem with most of you guys, you're freaking adults, you're human beings, you're adults, and you do not know what you want. So how can you ever achieve what you want if you do not know what you want? And this is what I'm struggling with right now too, is what do I want, right? And this is the problem with attaching ourselves to what other people are doing and thinking that we want what they want or what they have. This is what I'm dealing with right now for myself, because I was very clear, roughly 2 decades of my life, what I wanted was this financial freedom, so I have the time freedom to enjoy my family, my life, travel, enjoy all these things. But now I've got this big old mentorship. I've got a big old free community, and I love helping people. I love helping people. But it's, what do I want? That's what I'm working on as well. So hit the nail on the head. And this is what a lot of people are struggling with as well. What do you want? And I just want to be very transparent, because I hate being pedestalized, because I want people to understand we're all struggling with this crap. But it's so imperative that we address this. So this is a challenge for me to clearly identify, what do I want right now? Thank you.
And the last question might help a little with that, Mike. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. But I'll keep it moving on just in a consciousness of time here. So next question here. What am I willing to sacrifice? If there's something you want that you're not currently doing or working towards in your life, you don't currently have, means you're going to have to do more stuff. In order to have something you don't currently have, you got to do stuff you're not currently doing, which means you got to also become someone you're not yet, right? We've heard that all our lives. Be, do, have. If that's the case, then we've got to identify, what are we going to give up? Is it a part of who you are? Is it broken belief systems? What part of your schedule are you going to allocate to this new thing? And the schedule is a big thing, right? Because oftentimes we'll start a new venture and we won't allocate time in it. And then we're constantly saying those magical lies, those words, I didn't have enough time. And I call them lies because to say you don't have enough time is almost paradoxical, because there's nothing you can do about time. We all have, every single human has the exact same amount. It's brutally predictable. It moves at the same pace. You can't borrow it, steal it, share it, save it, nothing. So it's the one variable that you can't do anything with. So to say you have enough of it is, what, do you deserve more magically somehow? No. We've got to be clear on how we choose to use our time. And if any of you are using that excuse, I didn't have enough time, change your words and you'll change your behavior. To that person that you let down when you said you didn't have enough time to do that thing you said you'd do for them, choose the words that go more like, I chose to do something else in that time that I had. And see how many times you repeat that behavior. It'll change how you act. That aside, okay? What am I willing to sacrifice? Make clear what you're willing to give up, or what will happen is you'll sacrifice things not by choice, by default, that really matter to you. And I can give you horror stories of that. And that's probably why the divorce rate in entrepreneurialism is so high. Next one here. Who do I need to become? I ask myself this every single question. I look at what I have to do today, what I have to do today. If I did it right, it's a little harder than yesterday, which means I've got to become someone I'm not yet. It might be, Pat, you got to be even more patient than you've become so far. Or Pat, you've got to be a little more disciplined. Or Pat, your focus has got to get tuned up in order to pull this off today. And every day we build more wins that we park into that little chest that we keep by our side, because we'll need them, because we'll doubt ourselves tomorrow. And we're going to need to know that we're building this empire on results, on factual information that supports we're becoming the person we say we're able to become. Okay. This is how the process works. Who do I need to become next? What is the cost of inaction? So this taps into a part of our psychology where there's an internal scale. The scale goes like this. When the pain of staying the same finally gets greater than the perceived pain of change, we'll start to take action. We'll start to do something about it. Okay. Now, when you ask yourself a question like, man, what if I'm back on the same call a year from now and I see all the great things all of you have done and I show up and I'm in the same damn spot? How does that make you feel? And it's worth going through that little exercise, tuning up that pain of staying the same and get really uncomfortable. Feel that emotion. Say, I don't give a shit. I don't even care what people think about me now. I'm taking action because the pain of being here is getting very painful. Now, let me say one other thing about pain. This is important. We have a bad relationship, better word, improper relationship with pain. We were brought up, raised with the idea that pain is bad. And when pain shows up, what do? We anesthetize it. We drug over it. We distract from it. We ignore it, right? But we don't lean into it. When in fact, and here's the truth, pain is one of the greatest, most intelligent languages of the universe. It tells you exactly what you need to stop doing right now and what to do next, physically and mentally, emotionally. In our lives, it's less physical, it's more mental and emotional, but sometimes it's physical. It tells us exactly what to stop doing, what to do next. And what do? Dum-dums, right? Is we don't pay attention. If we haven't done a good job distracting it or ignoring it, we drink it away at the end of the day, or we smoke it away. We drug it out of our lives. Or, oh, I'm just having another drink. I'm just unwinding. Bullshit. You're running from your pain. Let's be honest. But that's the pain that moves us forward. I'm telling you guys to put a new definition around pain and appreciate it. It's like your secret weapon. It's guidance from a high level intelligence. Call it God, the universe, source energy, whatever you want, right? But it's what gives us the instructions we need to move forward on. So
Can I hit one thing right there? Alcohol, drugs, right? Obvious ways that you are. What is one that most people do not realize? Distractions. You're distracting yourself away, whether it's through Zooms, like you're on another Zoom, you're reading a book that's not really relevant for you right now. Well, reading's always good, but like you're just doing things, you're distracting yourself away from the pain in essence. You're listening to another Hermosi video, this, you know, this platitude or really high level, not tactical advice for you in your life. But you're like, I'm going to just watch another video. I'm going to watch another thing, learn from this person who's not even really providing a lot of value, but it feels good or foofy inside. That is one of the biggest things that a lot of us are doing more than likely is distracting ourselves. And that is the way, even if you're not drinking or smoking, that is the way that you are alleviating your pain. But in reality, it's causing you much more pain in the long term. But it feels okay.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point. The hardest ones are when we're using a positive behavior to mask our pain, because then we feel good about it. People go to the gym way too many hours a week because they're avoiding their reality, but they feel good about it and justified and validated because we're doing stuff for our health here, right? And which sounds good and looks good on the outside, but the truth is they're getting deeper and deeper and deeper into a rut that's going to get harder and harder and harder to get out of because they're not leaning into the pain. That's the way we deal with this. Remember that scale. When we anesthetize our pain, distract from our pain, it lightens that scale and allows us to keep doing the behaviors that are destructive to our growth, destructive to who we're capable of becoming. Even if it's a positive behavior in isolation, it can still be destructive to who we're meant to be.
That's so good because I love this piece of it because we know bad distraction. We know what is bad. The biggest thing preventing us from being the best version of ourselves is all these good versions. We're leaning into these good things that are also distracting ourselves from the best version of what we need to accomplish. But it's hard, like you said, Pat, because it feels like we're doing something good. You are doing this thing. You are, let's say for real estate, you want to buy and hold real estate and be financially free. You need to find deals to buy, analyze them, or raise money for those deals. But you are connecting with more people. You're getting on more Zooms. You are trying to wholesale for a minute. You're trying to do this. You're trying to do that. You're doing all these good things, but they're all distracting from the best version of what you actually want to accomplish in whatever that looks like, whether it's real estate investing or not.
That's a big piece of it, and be aware of those pieces there. So last question here, and this is the one that I think might be worth pondering for you. We asked, the first question was, what do you want? Last question sounds like it, but it's completely different. It's, what does success feel like to you? And the key word there is feel. Okay. So it's a less tangible definition of what you want. So the baseline of this question is, we got to, again, shut off what we think other people think success is. We got to try to shut off a definition around success and really lean into the idea of, what does it feel like? And this is, if we go back to what we talked about earlier, putting yourself in a bored state. So we're not thinking, but we're allowing thoughts to happen. This is where we'll find the most accurate answer to this question. And it's going to be a little different for everybody, but it's worth putting the time into. That becomes your lighthouse. That becomes the higher authority in your future decision making. Goals are not an end. Goals are a means to an end. They're a way to measure progress. But when we set a goal as an end, we get stuck at the end of it. And that might be kind of where you've arrived, Mike. I set a goal and I've achieved it. Now what? Well, you forgot the landing strip that goes after the goal, you know? But if we look at goals as a means to an end, not an end, and we put this higher form of guidance out in front of us, it also allows us to align our goals a lot more accurately along the way. We'll speed up the path there. So we own that gym for, I think, 13 years. And one thing I learned in the gym world is that people don't really want to go to the gym. You know what they want? They don't want our highly skilled trainers. They don't want a nutritionalist. They don't want the great equipment we have or the training mats. You know what they want? They want the freaking results. The gym is a necessary tool to the results, but they don't want the gym. So stop selling them the gym. Start focusing on the goals, their definition of success, right? And let's build it around that. If I can provide a journey between where they are to that, then I'll get everything I need out of them as well, right? That makes sense, that explanation?
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, that is honestly so good. I mean, even someone in the comments, Ilya just said, "It's gold. Thank you. This whole live is for me." And I know that resonates with so many people because this has been a big conflict for me. Like, what do I want? What is the expectations of what people want from me? I do know. And like, what does success feel like for me? Feels above everything else. Present father and husband, loving, supportive above everything else. So, on everything else that I am sacrificing to achieve that, I know that's not in alignment with what I want to do. Does that mean I'm going to be involved 24/7, 7 days a week? No, that's not who I am. But it means being present and intentional with the time that I spend and being very intentional about dedicating quality time and a sufficient amount of time. It means one big one for me is helping people. I've literally loved helping people forever, and this is a big part of it. So I cannot not help people. That is part of feeling successful for me. I love it, whether I'm getting paid for it or not. I will continue to help people. And then a big one for me is this freedom. I want the freedom to control my time, to not worry about not being able to pay for something. And I'm not talking about fancy cars or jets. I've never thought of success as that. It's the freedom to control my time and my schedule so that I can do what I want, when I want, within reason. I'm not saying take a private jet to, I don't even care to go to Dubai, but like do that kind of stuff. I'm saying within reason, I want to be able to do what I want, when I want, have total control of my time, and then be present for my family and helping other people. As long as I can incorporate that with some nature, good habits, all that kind of stuff, I feel very satisfied. That is very successful. That is why I need to remind myself constantly instead of trying to be the biggest and best version of everything I'm trying to do, because that's not even in alignment with what I actually want to accomplish. It's going to come at a cost that I do not want it to come at. So this is good. This in itself, just sitting there reflecting just for a few minutes while you're talking, has already provided me a lot more clarity on all this stuff. Michelle does want to go to Dubai. I love that. I want you to go to Dubai. That's the coolest part. And this is, you hit another point. Like when I tell people I could care less about real estate, I literally do not care about real estate in and of itself. I don't care about houses. Real estate to me is the best high leveraged asset to achieve financial freedom in the shortest amount of time. I've always cared for real estate as a means to an end, as an asset to help you achieve your goal of financial freedom, which really then allows you to have time freedom, control of your time, whatever you want to do. Real estate in itself is not the goal. I don't care that I own, if I can own one house versus 100 houses versus 1,000 houses, I don't care. That's not the thing for me. The thing is what it allows me to do. It is the means to the end. So you highlighting it the way that you did, your perspective of it, beautiful. Thank you.
Cool. We'll wrap it on these last two thoughts here, Mike. Okay.
Please.
Yeah. So one is just a posture I want to use an analogy for here. I'll be the first one to tell you all, this game of entrepreneurialism is not for the faint at heart. It's just not. Not everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur, to wake up in the morning and be responsible for you and others and how you perform and other people's livelihood and money and so forth and so on. There's a great burden that we carry. An analogy out of the fighting world goes something like this. There's two postures in a fighting cage, and once you get an eye for it, you can see it a mile away. Anytime you're either fighting to win or you're fighting not to lose. And the difference is this: when you're fighting to win, you're going forward, you're throwing punches and kicks, you're the cause, and they're reacting to you. Okay. You're setting the pace, you're forcing them to accommodate your strategy. You're going first. When you're fighting not to win, you're covering up, you're backing up, you're blocking their punches and kicks. There's only two things that happens when you're fighting not to win. You will buy time, no doubt, but you're either going to miss a block and get knocked out, or you're going to make all 3 rounds or 5 rounds, whatever it is, and you're going to lose to the judges, but you're not going to win. You may go the whole distance. You're going to get the shit kicked out of you, and you're going to walk out a loser. The only chance of winning is to constantly be in a posture of fighting to win, which means not fearless, but courageous. You're not asked to be fearless. Fear is triggered by the unknown. The unknown happens every time you go to do something new, and growth and change requires new and different. So I'll give you my little acronym of fear, right? And I know there's, fear appearing false, reality appearing real, all that, right? This one works really well. Face it. Name the fear and write it down. Own it. Put a character to it. Once you identify the enemy, you can destroy the enemy. Evaluate it. What's the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario? What's the most likely scenario? Because now you're going to switch into your left brain out of the emotional right brain, and you're going to put a little logic to this and realize that this isn't as bad as it seems. No matter the outcome, act anyways. Take small, immediate step forward, and then reflect on it. Feedback loop, like you talked about, Mike. What really happened? Collect the new data and do it again, and repeat and repeat and repeat, and don't stop moving forward. That's how we confront fear in our lives. It's okay to be afraid. Nothing wrong with that. I don't care how tough or how strong you are, right? You'll always be encountered with fear at different parts of your life. That's perfectly human. How we choose to deal with it, though, that's on us. And if we fall back to a position of fighting not to lose, we will lose the fight. It's just an inevitable function of time. Mike, I'm going to kind of hand it back to you now, brother. We'll wrap it up on that.
No, that was perfect. That is a phenomenal way to finish it. I love that. You're either fighting to win or you're fighting not to lose, and you're going to lose for certain if you're fighting not to lose. That's just not the way to advance forward. It does not work. I love the fighting analogy there, but regardless, that is so applicable to life. Thank you. So for all of my super investors, I'm going to drop the workbook that Pat created for us, for you guys to be able to go through these exercises yourself. And as a special extra, for anyone in Wealth Through Real Estate, if you guys go and post and comment in the Wealth Through Real Estate free school community, if you do not know what I'm talking about, go to my Instagram, go to my link tree, click the link in my bio, join Wealth Through Real Estate free school community. If you guys comment in there, I will also give you guys access to that workbook, because this is so powerful. This is our live weekly mastermind and super investors, but because we had special guest Patrick come in and go through all this stuff, and I knew this is so applicable for so many freaking people, I wanted as many of you as possible to be able to hear his message and the tactical advice for you to help overcome one, if not five, all 5 of these things that you're dealing with, which me too. I get you. I'm dealing with this too. Super investors, you're automatically going to get all this stuff. If you guys want it in Wealth Through Real Estate, go post, go comment. If you're not in the community, go join the community, go post and comment, and then I will get you guys a copy of it as well. So thank you. Thank you so much, Pat.